Hey everyone, welcome back to more viewer coaching. Today we've got Evil Ree, who said they struggle with reading in general, reading dodges, reading movements, stuff like that. So hopefully I'll give them some tips and tricks to help them along their way. Get an idea of how they play. Once again, this is more in the gold mini-series, I guess I would call it, about trying to target the most populous player base in Brawlhalla. And if Evil Ree struggles with it, maybe you struggle with it as well. I said that because their name is Ree as well, excuse me. Generally speaking, in these coaching segments, I play quite differently than I normally do, because I'm just trying to get a sense of how you guys generally play on your own. So hopefully that's not too annoying if you're watching it, but at the very least, I have some tips and tricks for you to maybe take along in your journey along the way. All right, anyway, with that out of the way, let's start this first stock, and hopefully on the Scythe, I'll be able to notice some of those things that you were mentioning about struggling to read and everything like that. So the first thing I noticed right there, this is a very, very big Scythe habit, is going for down air all the time in neutral. Now, down air is a great move. Don't get me wrong. Here, I'll let you back on stage. Sorry, let me interrupt myself real quick. The reason why I let them back on stage is because I want to see how they would react with out of options, and I had a feeling you might try an instant attack, and you did. So I think in that scenario, when someone's just trying to back up, the thing to do is to just focus on your movement first, because they're trying everything in their power to bait you out to use an attack, to panic when you're landing, and so not giving it to them makes their job harder. Anyway, sorry, I was saying, what was I saying? I can't remember. Oh yeah, down air on Scythe, because it can give you so many hits and so many options, and that 45-degree angle is so good against so many weapons. Ignore my downlight there. It is a pretty common habit that people tend to miss it, and then they're just stuck there for a while, because Scythe down air is one of the moves that is it's punishable. So be careful about throwing that one out all the time. Now I know that's not related to dodge punishes, but yeah, it still could be with reading, because if you're trying to read their movement, you want to be more precise with it, right? You want to set yourself up with your own movement and then read from there, right? So let's see now with the orb. It seems like you're going for a lot of hits by just walking forward and then trying to attack, which we've talked about a bunch before in this series, about like people just going for instant attacks, right? That attacking down air. If I'm just backing up, the only thing I'm waiting for you to do is to come into this zone, right? And all I have to do is back up more and punish you. So yeah, so it looks like you are struggling a little bit against passive play as well. I know you didn't mention that, but I figured that maybe based on an earlier habit about you coming back onto stage and instant attacking. Let's see if you do it again. Yep. So notice that habit, right? Whenever I'm in this zone and you think you can hit me, you go for the attack right away once again. So just delay a little bit if you notice yourself in those scenarios, and see how that changes the state of play. Couldn't speak for a bit, but hopefully message still gets across. All right, game number 2 here. Now, you noticed towards the end of that game, I started playing a little bit differently. I noticed a little bit of a habit about maybe struggling against passive players, and I didn't do any of these dodges stuff that I was mentioning I might do at the start. So this game, I'm going to try and work and get hit by your strings, so I dodge out. Let's see if I dodge in. How do you mix it up? Yeah, so the first thing that I'm noticing in terms of reading dodges is that you tend to commit a lot right away. So a big thing about reading dodges is dodge reading isn't necessarily something that's given. It's a meta kind of technique, which is to say that people dodge because they expect you to hit them. Now, the thing is, if you don't really hit them in their zone, or if they don't get hit, they don't ever have to worry about it, and so they can either mix up their dodges more safely, or they don't even have to dodge at all. So if you are struggling against reading dodges, make sure that you're not going for the super high commitment stuff right away. You want to get a sense of how they generally play first. So what I'm going to do is a typical dodge in style against Scythe. So I'm going to hold in, and when I get hit, I'm going to immediately dodge in. We'll see how you handle that. This is a very common thing. So right there, that end light, for example, that's like, okay, he's not going to dodge. I'm going to do the end light. Perfectly okay. Didn't get the read. Not necessarily super high commitment, but it is what it is. There I tried to dodge in, but I think I misinputted. But yeah, so like this is the type of thing, right? You notice that dodge in, and now you punish it. Great, that's perfect. Didn't get the full punish, didn't get the KO off of it, but at the very least, you saw the pattern, you saw the habit, and you executed. So that's something to look out for, right? If someone is always holding in, or they always want to get into your zone, right? Maybe they dodge down. That's another very common habit. Or maybe they always wake up attack. If someone is very, very prone to attacking all the time, one of the most common habits to go along with that in their defensive play is to get back into the action right away. So look out for dodge ins, look out for dodge downs, GC wake ups against players like that. Now, if someone's more passive, maybe they're trying to avoid combat, and get individual hits here and there, maybe they tend to dodge out, maybe they dodge up. They want to escape the scenario at all costs. So a lot of reading dodges isn't just with the dodge itself, but it's with noticing those habits in other areas of their play, and then once again, like I mentioned at the start, conditioning them to dodge by punishing those, right? You go for options that you think will hit based on other things, then the meta is that, oh, I have to dodge, I have to escape. So the idea is that you want to go for, at the very least, lower commitment options at the start when you're just getting a sense of how people dodge, and then from there there, you can go for the higher commitment stuff after that. Now, in general, it kind of seems like you're a little bit shaky on the dodge punishes itself. So another thing I recommend doing is not even going for the read, not even going for the punish, and then punishing their movement after that. This is one of the most common things you see at higher level play, and this is really something that distinguishes people that are going for option A versus going for option B. If you've watched the other videos, then you know what I'm talking about. Is if you can't get the read, you can't get the punish, read what they're going to do after this. So maybe you go for an attack there, maybe you dodge. I'll try and bait out on dodge. I'll do something that like starts up a string, and then I'll try and show an example of it. It is last stock in the orange, so it might be a little less likely. Okay, so right there, right, I noticed you dodged, and I didn't have the read. I didn't know you were going to spot dodge, but instead of going for that punish, I went for the punish on the side air instead. Now, I missed because I'm terrible, but if I'm a good player, maybe I even land an N-sig there, right? So right there, yeah, once again, I noticed you dodge, and then instead of trying to punish the dodge itself, because I wasn't in position, I didn't have the timing for it, I went for the next thing. Now, right there, that was perfect. I tried to end light wake up, and you got me. You went for the option B punish. That was perfect. So yeah, it seems like in general, going for that kind of mixing things up between always committing to a hard read, I'm getting a lot of damage. Now, I'm not necessarily punishing everything to like the maximum extent of what I could, but a lot of the damage I'm getting is because you're going for these punishes or these reads every single time, as opposed to sometimes backing up, again, going for option B, which is to say, you know, you have your first choice. If someone's in front of you, you end light. Option B would be maybe to do an empty hop end light, right? One layer deeper. So this game, I'm really going to focus on going for option B, so you get a clear visual example of what I'm talking about. And let's see, I'm going to go for these side lights, bait out a dodge, and then you jump and go for a down air, right? So instead of getting a dodge punish, because I'm not entirely sure which direction you're going to dodge, I go for the thing after that. And because you used your dodge, you are now more vulnerable, right? So it's not like I'm losing out on the opportunity. I'm still aggressing on the opportunity. It's just rather than getting the max damage option all the time, I'm going for something that's safer, more guaranteed, and still building up damage from there. Now, after that, once I have a read on your options and you start to worry more about your dodges, because a lot of the time when people get punished for option B, they don't realize it. They think it's their dodge that's the problem, when in reality, it's the option after. It's the dare that was the problem there, not your actual dodge. But you start associating with the problem with your dodge, and then they panic dodge. And that's when you can really get those hard reads, right? If someone's always dodging out, right there, I could have gone for a side light into double down light. And then when you start to miss attacks, it looks like you start to get really flustered and then attack more. I think in these scenarios, right, when I'm just like hopping around like this, you tended to go for like orb side sig a lot when you didn't know what to do. I think when you don't really know what to do in a scenario, rather than trying to go for something that's like, okay, if this hits, it'll be good for me, slow down and think a little bit more about like playing truths of the game. Like, what is a truth of the game? The closer I am to the opponent, the less time they have to react. The more jumps they use, the less they'll have to fall down to the ground, right? And you start thinking about things in terms of those scenarios, landing hits becomes more like an equation and less like, okay, I hope this will hit. I don't know what to do. They're doing all these things. I don't know how to handle it. You start looking at them more as just a character on the screen, right? Dusk only has 3 jumps. He can't do anything else. So when I'm jumping around like this, now I don't have options, and maybe I can wait that out for an end light. So looking at those habits, that's a big part of reading, because if you don't know anything about your opponent now, okay, if we're talking tournaments, you've played someone a lot of times, it's a little bit different. But if you look at your opponent first as a character, then getting reads after that, you can start to get a sense of how they generally play. But if you look at the truths first, right, that landing, for example, you knew I was going to land there and you attacked that. How did you know? Well, adaptation. I was landing like that earlier. Maybe you went for it out of desperation. I don't actually know. Yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But there's a reason why you went for it, right? You felt something. You felt like it would hit. And so playing to those truths will be able to get you that sense, that feeling. But if you start to get flustered and lose that sense, then it gets a lot harder and harder to be able to think critically about those moments, or at the very least notice them when they come up. So that's the TLDR of things if I were to sum it up. Number 1, wake up attacks and always going for attacks when you're landing and approaching. When people are just backing up against you, try to delay your attacks and walk forward for maybe half a second longer to try and shake them up. Number 2 is dodges. When you're trying to read dodges, notice some of the habits that people have in other areas of the game. If they always wake up attacking, if they're constantly spamming, you know, maybe try to read a dodge in, a dodge down. It's much more likely. If they're playing more passively, dodge outs, diagonal dodges, everything like that is more likely as well. The last thing is playing the truth of the game when you start to get flustered. Remember that the opponent on the other side of the screen is a character first and a player second. No matter how good the player is, they always have to play to the boundaries of the game. So if they're jumping around, they're hopping around, you can't read their dodges, well, remember, they only have a limited number of options. There's only so many things you could do. So when you're trying to read an opponent and you can't do it, think of them as a character first and a player second. That's going to be it for me though. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully it was helpful. I apologize. I'm very flustered right now. It's been a while since I've done this, but at the very least, I hope it helps some of you out there on the ranked ladder. Thank you everyone for coming on stream. This is the end of this session from this stream, and that's going to do it for me. Take care everyone. I'll see you in the next one.